Well, we are different, and what we're seeing is a movement toward Trump with late breakers. We're also seeing folks that had initially given every indication they were going to support Biden or they were undecided, moving toward Trump. And the issue we see them moving on is shutdowns. Even young people who identify that they don't like the president, they like shutdowns even less. Even suburban women who say they have problems with the president, they like their children at home and shutdowns even less.
Very interesting. Mark, what are you seeing?
Well, we're seeing a race that's about 7-8 points, and so that's a tough one for Trump to make up, particularly with weaknesses in the suburbs and with seniors. I think Kevin McCarthy was right. This does come down to Pennsylvania and Arizona, but that's only if the president clears Florida, where it's within the margin of error, and North Carolina, where it's in the margin of error as well.
Now, Robert, you break out the local races within your polls. Tell me how you're polling differently than others.
Well, one of the things we do is we try to give people a more comfortable environment to participate anonymously. We think the more anonymous someone participates, the more honest they are. I think it's one of the problems with most of the polls out there is that there's this thing called the social desirability bias where people don't give their true opinion because they don't want to be judged or thought harshly of. And so we try to minimize that. We also do very short surveys so that we get average people to participate. This model of calling people with 20, 30, 40 questions, people just don't have time and they don't participate. So average people often get undercounted.
And Mark, you also have the Harris poll. How is that done? Are you calling people at home? Are you doing cell phones? Is there a population of people that you're reaching out to more than others? Tell us what's behind your polling.
Look, we take a broad sample on the internet and we give people the anonymity of the internet, and we look out for various biases. Are we getting enough rural voters, for example? But I think we are getting enough rural voters. The questions here are a little bit more in the suburbs. We also have to look at the complexity here of mail-in voters, because half the people who say they mailed it in are heavily Democratic. And the people who are supposed to show up on Election Day, heavily Republican. So a lot of this will be about Election Day turnout, and no poll can measure that exactly.
Well, first of all, I think the new Iowa poll kind of confirms what we've been saying all along. Iowa was not a real battleground state. Joni Ernst was not ever really in trouble. I never bought into any of that. Now, in Pennsylvania, it's rather interesting. I keep hearing that the president is down in Pennsylvania because the Democrats have voted more than Republicans. Well, look at Pennsylvania's registration. Its registration is so outweighed Democrats by Republicans. If there weren't Democrats voting for Donald Trump, he wouldn't have won Pennsylvania the first time. So you can't just assume because Democrats are voting that they're not voting for Donald Trump because they did 4 years ago.
All right, I think real quick, Robert, before you guys go, it's interesting to look at the African-American and Hispanic vote. We've been hearing a lot of outreach from that community in this election cycle. We haven't seen that before. What can you say about those groups? We're going to speak with Herschel Walker, one of the outspoken people that have talked a lot about support for Trump coming up in the program.
What we found in the African-American vote is it is absolutely moving toward Trump, and whereas some of those votes were shy voters before, they're not so shy anymore. And, led by strong people like Herschel Walker and some of the other major folks in the black community who've endorsed, not to mention the information provided in the debate where all of a sudden so many people heard all the things Trump had done for this community. These guys are thinking and making their own decisions, and not going to be taken advantage of or taken for granted, and who can blame them? It's a strong move. I think it's going to make a difference.